July 10, 2023. Good day all. This is a message from Sierra Victor. Internal Principles, Part 3. Today's topic is actually more part of the external principles, but the cold weather today over most of South Africa gives us the opportunity to touch on a subject of huge debate. The question of bugging in, that is to stay where you are, and bugging out, to relocate to the bush or veld. Bugging out is hugely romanticized by prepper groups internationally, but especially in the United States. Now imagine yourself this morning with children and elderly in your group, waking up in a tent or a temporary building somewhere in the veld or bush with light snow, freezing wind, no electricity because your solar panels don't receive enough sunlight, and water frozen. It is not only cold, but wet. You compete with hundreds of other families for firewood, and food to hunt as the game migrated long ago from the noise of the camp. It has been 6 months and your original rations are depleted. The uncertainty of the past couple of months drives everyone psychologically to the edge, even privacy became a luxury. Vehicles became useless as there are no fuel depots within reach. Here are no medical facilities other than the basics, and even that is by far inadequate for the number of people in your camp. Your camp has no political, economical, or security lever. You can't claim refugee status as you initially fled with firearms and ammunition. In fact, you might now be accused as being a militant terrorist group threatening the constitution and stability of South Africa. The government will be at liberty to use the defense force against you, and you will have very limited resources to defend yourself against them as you only have what you could fit in your vehicle and trailer. Let's look at the other scenario. The bugging in option. The initial wave of violence was terrible, but the communities quickly established a defendable perimeter and organized in various groups. Soft targets like women, children, and the elderly were moved to safe areas. Perimeter houses were converted into forts and bungalows for security teams. Warehouses, hospitals, fuel stations, and depots as well as water reservoirs where there are no streams, rivers or dams were secured. Access routes to and from safe areas are blocked and manned by security teams. Electricity is still a problem from time to time, but there are enough generators and fuel to keep at least the hospitals and butcheries running. Supermarket hours is regulated to 2 hours per day with limitations to purchases to stretch resources. Distribution of new supplies and resupplies protected by armed convoys continue. It is also cold and wet outside, but brick houses and concrete buildings provide much needed shelter. Neighboring like-minded safe areas merge together and become bigger safe areas with more resources and logistics. You are not a clearly defined group, you are the citizens of a country terrorized by a threat. You have the right in terms of international law to defend yourself. And you will have the resources and logistics to do so. The main difference in these two strategies would be moral ground and logistics. As mentioned, bugging out with weapons and ammunition cannot provide you a refugee status, but it can target you as a threat. Bugging in would lend you anonymity as no one can accuse you of being a threat. Logistics. Let's talk about logistics. Towns and cities have far more logistics than any farm or veld area. Especially in terms of fuel, pharmaceuticals, food, and other hardware. The biggest concern in cities and towns would be water, but most cities or towns have streams, rivers, or dams close by if not in them. There are water reservoirs, swimming pools etc. as well. There is an old saying that says, amateurs think strategy, professionals think logistics. This is very simplified, but there is much truth in it. Without logistics, any force or effort is useless. Logistics made the Germans lose in World War II on the Eastern Front. If a mass effort is launched on us, the race should be for logistics. Whoever acquire, protect, and control the most logistics will have the advantage. Logistics should be the initial first priority. Mental exercise. Instead of driving through your neighborhood, town, or city listening to the radio or thinking about normal daily matters, switch off the radio and start identifying logistics and sources of logistics. Hospitals. pharmacies, supermarkets, hardware shops, general dealers like macro, game etc., fuel stations and depots, water sources like reservoirs, distribution warehouses. Thank you for listening or reading this message. Please feel free to use and distribute as needed. Our messages are not by any means enticing you to a revolution of sorts, but rather to equip you with the necessary theoretical background in order to assist local armed forces or police in stabilizing a SHTF situation. Please contact any admin on any Sierra Victor group for our previous material or search for our channel on YouTube. In our next message we will continue with External Principles, Part 1. We wish you well. Sierra Victor.